Hi, and welcome to my channel, Optimism and Autism. I am an autism mom. My name is Alexia, and I have a 4-year-old son who is autistic. And I'm also a teacher, so I find myself running into students who may possibly be on the spectrum, whether they're diagnosed or not. Um, it is interesting to also see myself apply those different. Um, Things that I've learned with my son into my classroom. For example, I had a student that did not want to stop whatever he was doing. And so instead of just getting frustrated, I pulled out a visual timer. I gave him 5 minutes and I told him in 5 minutes, I need you to move on to the next activity. Um, Initially, I thought the student was about to have a breakdown, but it seemed to work for him. So I am going to be sharing some things that I've learned and just our experiences in our life living with a child on the spectrum. We also have a 3-year-old son, a 2-year-old son, I'm sorry. And we try our best to expose Isaiah to real life events, whether it's being with family, whether it's being with just the four of us. We want to expose him and get him used to being outside in the real world every day. Initially, I would run errands with the kids, and I would find myself struggling sometimes because Isaiah would be having a meltdown. Honestly, at the time, I didn't know it was called a meltdown. I thought he was having a tantrum. When he was 2, they had got so bad that I took him to the doctor and I said, he's really having these really bad tantrums. I didn't know it was a meltdown then. And the doctor was like, yeah, that's normal. And then it wasn't until the summer of, I want to say 2020, where we were taking him out of the daycare and we just, I guess, wanted a fresh start. Um, and so before that even before that had even happened, his daycare teacher pulled me to the side and she did not use the word autism because she said she was not a doctor, but she had some concerns. And as a mom, I was like, there's nothing wrong with my baby. Um, at the time, I didn't really think anything of it. I really did not think anything was wrong. Um, but over time, I just started to feel like something wasn't right, and I could not put my finger on it. Initially, I told um, his doctor my biggest concern at the beginning was his speech. I felt like he should have had more words. Initially, when I moved to a new state with my husband, I was getting my teaching license transferred over to a new state. So I worked at a daycare. I worked in a 2-year-old classroom with kids all over the place. Okay. I had an idea of how many words or how a 2-year-old should have been responding, um, even verbally or just even following directions. Those different things, I didn't think nothing of it, but they were hard tasks for Isaiah to follow at one point. Initially, I found myself having to call his name numerous times, but I did not think anything of it because I was like, well, after I call his name 4 to 5 times, or if I'm a little stern when I call his name, he does come sometimes. Um, and so after that, we started our journey. I think for me, as a mom, I really had a hard time. I was, I didn't know I was, but I think I was depressed. I was always crying. I was overwhelmed. I did not know that there were things I could do for my baby. I also went back and forth to, no, he's not autistic. He's just a late talker. Maybe he'll talk, you know. And I debated with myself. I was like, there's nothing wrong with my baby. And what I'm learning now, seeing other parents go through the same things that I've went through and hearing other moms talk about their story, is that we all go through denial. Like we've all been there. Honestly, I thought it was going to separate me and my husband. Honestly, because he was in when I was getting out of denial, he was still in denial. And I was worried. I mean, honestly, I didn't know like if it was something that I could find my husband like continuing to support me. But initially, those feelings are completely normal. Like they're completely normal. Once we got through that and we went through the process of getting him diagnosed, that was the first thing I did. I took him to the doctor and I told him his daycare teacher thinks that he might be autistic. I said, I don't know. I'm not even exactly really sure honestly what autism looks like. You know what I mean? I knew it was like a social disorder, as far as like being around others. Now, there were some concerns. Like there was a point where Isaiah would scream every time I left him. There was a point where every time he would cry, someone when someone new would come in the house or come around. He doesn't do those things anymore, but those are just one those are that's just one example of some of the things that he once did that he wasn't doing anymore. And I thought it was just a normal phase, and it is for some kids. It's a normal phase. So after we went through that process, we started with speech. That's where we started. I took him to get a speech evaluation, and I was nervous. Mm, It was me and Isaiah. I was driving in the car. I was in the car, guys. I was rehearsing with him to sing "Old MacDonald Had a Farm." Okay. I thought that was going to get us through it. Like, oh, yeah, he's fine. Like, he's just going to, he's going to pass, or, they'll just say it's just a speech delay. But initially, when I got there was some paperwork I had to fill out, and I noticed that there were a lot of questions on there. And for some reason, I felt that maybe they may say he might have been autistic because I've already been on YouTube doing research. I've been on Google researching up and down things that I can do to help my son who has a speech delay. These are all the things that I've done. I've called the speech therapist, y'all, and been like, and asked them a few questions. Oh, my son doesn't need it, and just went on. So eventually I came back around to it and I was like, okay, let's get him speech therapy. Got him in speech therapy. When I took him to get his evaluation, the speech therapist told me that she thinks he may be autistic. She saw the delayed eye contact, some of the toe walking, a little bit of the flapping, but she wasn't totally sure. Well, not that she wasn't told, she couldn't give him she couldn't diagnose him with autism. So she saw all the signs, but she couldn't diagnose him. So what she told me is that I needed to put in a request to the doctor to get him on a list to be seen. I want to say by a psychologist to be tested for autism. So after I did that part, they called me about our insurance. Insurance is the one thing that'll like put you on hold, kind of, depending on because certain facilities only take certain insurance. So we got him on the waiting list, and she told us that it was about a year. The waiting list was about a year, but it didn't take a year. I want to say took about 8, 9 months. It did take a while, and I've heard that the waiting list is getting longer. Um, and that is honestly just a process, and it also depends on your state. Um, Once we went through that process, got him diagnosed. That was a 3-part series. It was me and my husband answering a bunch of questions with a psychologist, and then it was Isaiah, and then my husband took him to an appointment where they wanted to meet him in person, have him do some different tasks to see where they would put him. They had it, I think it's high functioning, and then I think there's 3 levels: level 1, 2, and 3. And then the last session is where the psychologist met with me and my husband, and she told us he was autistic. I don't know what she was expecting or what she's expected in the past, but we were like, okay. At this point, me and my husband are convinced that he's autistic, and we're just like, okay, what can we do to help him? Um, we just honestly weren't sure how bad they thought it was, which honestly, that doesn't determine anything. Um, um, and that is why early intervention is so important. So after we went through that, got in contact with an ABA facility. And let's just say I didn't have a guide to tell me what to do. I feel like that's something that moms should have, parents should have, grandmothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, who's ever taken care of a child. Like, those are some things that would be really helpful, I feel like. And so after we went through that, called, there was one place I called. It was super easy to get him in. It was super easy to do the paperwork. They made the process so easy. I mean, it was so easy. And then we got him in not too much longer after that. I don't think the wait was very long. Called in March, and I think we got him in July. And then he started ABA. Now, initially, when he started ABA, we had to do an evaluation again. So you find yourself doing these evaluations every time you're trying to get him into something new. So we had to do, when we got him in speech, we had to do a speech evaluation. When we got him in OT, we had to do an OT evaluation. When we got him into ABA, we had to do another evaluation to see how many hours insurance or how many hours they felt like he needed so that they could put the paperwork and send it to the insurance company. And so initially, I can't remember exactly how many hours a week it was that um, they felt like he would need. I want to, was it? I don't want to, it was close to 40 hours a week. Um, but I think it was less than 40. It was less than 40. I know it was less than 40. Maybe 35, something like that. And so we went through that, got his schedule set up. He still goes to this day. He goes 4 days a week. He goes from 8:30 to 3:30. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then Thursday, they've opened up more hours. So he goes 2 hours that day. So he goes to ABA pretty much every day of the week. The only challenge for us was the times. They don't have super early times. Like, I have to be at work at 7:45 or 7:40 to be exact every day. My husband has flexible hours, so he can work with whichever times work for him. But the dilemma was that he was working late because he would have to take Isaiah in at 8:45. I think it was like 8:30, 8:45 every day, which means he gets off work later. And so those were some of the things that we struggle with. Also, what we didn't know after we got him in is that yes, he may go to ABA every day, like day. So we took him completely out of daycare. Daycare was not going well where he was. I think he was having a lot of meltdowns, and I think he was getting overwhelmed with different things that were going on throughout the day. When I found that out initially, I was like, oh, say no more. I worked really hard to get him into ABA. I think that was my push. I was like, I need to get him some help, and I need to get him help now. Um, and got him in, and ABA has really helped him a lot. I will talk about this more in my next video, but at the beginning, ABA it wasn't everything I thought it would be so fast. So I would say that you need patience and you need to give it time. Initially, when he started therapy, he was hardly talking. Maybe a few months out, he started using more words. Now he was getting ABA, speech, and OT. And he was actually starting to tell us his wants and his needs, which he can do now. Um, but I was afraid. I'll be honest. I was afraid that maybe he wouldn't use his words. Now he's not. He doesn't use a whole lot of functional language. But if he needs something or he wants something, he will definitely let you know. Um, and also, he does express himself. He's gotten better at that. Um, and so I just wanted to share our story of the journey we went through, discovering that our baby was autistic. So follow, subscribe to my channel, Optimism and Autism. All right, bye. Check me out on my next video.